There were stories told in ancient Greece. These stories were about gods and heroes and various events. The stories have been told many times over many centuries. They continue to be told. Here are some of these stories, told simply and plainly. Demeter and Persephone. Demeter was a goddess. She was associated with grain and harvest. She had a daughter named Persephone. Persephone was young. She lived with her mother. They existed in this way for some time. One day, Persephone was in a meadow. She was looking at flowers. There were many flowers in the meadow. They grew in various colours. Persephone walked among them. She observed them. This was an ordinary activity for her. Hades was the god of the underworld. The underworld was the place where the dead resided. Hades lived there. He managed the realm. This was his function. He had been doing this for a long time. Hades saw Persephone in the meadow. He decided he wanted her to come to the underworld. He opened a gap in the earth. Persephone went through this gap. She arrived in the underworld. This is what happened. Demeter noticed that Persephone was not present. She looked for her daughter. She searched in various places. She did not find her. She continued searching. The searching went on for some time. While Demeter searched, she was not attending to the harvest. Grain did not grow as it should. The fields were less productive. People noticed this change. They were affected by it. The situation continued. Eventually, it was determined that Persephone was in the underworld. Demeter learned of this. Arrangements were discussed. There were conversations about what should be done. These conversations took place among the gods. It was decided that Persephone would spend part of the year in the underworld with Hades. She would spend the other part of the year above ground with Demeter. This arrangement was agreed upon. It was implemented. When Persephone was in the underworld, Demeter did not attend to the harvest. This period became winter. Plants did not grow. The fields were bare. When Persephone returned above ground, Demeter resumed her duties. This period became spring and summer. Plants grew. The harvest occurred. This pattern repeated each year. Persephone descended to the underworld. Winter came. Persephone returned to the surface. Spring came. The cycle continued. It continues still, according to the story. This is the explanation the story provides for the seasons. Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus was a musician. He played the lyre. He played it well. People enjoyed listening to him play. Animals also listened when he played. Even stones and trees seemed to respond to the music. This was the nature of his skill. Orpheus married a woman named Eurydice. They lived together. Their life was ordinary in most respects. Orpheus played music. Eurydice attended to her activities. They existed in this way. One day, Eurydice was walking. There was a snake in the grass. She stepped near it. The snake bit her. This bite caused her to die. She went to the underworld, as the dead do. This was an unfortunate event. Orpheus was unhappy about this. He decided to go to the underworld to retrieve Eurydice. He travelled to the entrance of the underworld. He went inside. He descended through the passages. He played his lyre as he went. The beings in the underworld heard the music. They stopped their activities to listen. The music was compelling. It held their attention. Orpheus continued playing as he walked deeper into the realm. He reached the place where Hades and Persephone resided. He played his music for them. They listened. When he finished, he explained why he had come. He wanted to bring Eurydice back to the living world. He made this request. Hades considered the request. He consulted with Persephone. They discussed it. After some time, they agreed to allow Eurydice to return with Orpheus. However, there was a condition. Orpheus was not to look back at Eurydice while they were travelling out of the underworld. He was to walk ahead of her and trust that she was following. This was the requirement. Orpheus agreed to this condition. Eurydice was brought to him. They began the journey back to the surface. Orpheus walked in front. Eurydice walked behind him. The passage was dim. The way was long. They walked steadily. As they walked, Orpheus could not see Eurydice. He could not verify that she was still behind him. He began to wonder if she was truly there. The doubt grew as they continued. He walked and wondered. The wondering increased. They were nearly at the surface. The exit was close. But Orpheus's doubt became too strong. He turned around to look at Eurydice. He saw her. She was there, following him. But the moment he looked, she began to fade. She was pulled back toward the underworld. She disappeared. She returned to the realm of the dead. Orpheus had broken the condition. Therefore, he could not keep Eurydice. He continued to the surface alone. He emerged from the underworld. Eurydice remained below. This was the outcome. Orpheus returned to his life. He continued to play music. He did not marry again. He remained alone. Eventually, he died, as all mortals do. He went to the underworld. There, according to some versions of the story, he was reunited with Eurydice. They remained together in death. This provided a resolution of sorts. King Midas. There was a king named Midas. He ruled a kingdom. His rule was ordinary. He had wealth. He had responsibilities. He managed his kingdom as kings do. One day, Midas encountered Silenus. Silenus was a companion of the god Dionysus. He was old and often drunk. He had wandered away from Dionysus and become lost. Midas found him. He treated him kindly. He gave him food and shelter. He allowed him to rest. After some time, he returned Silenus to Dionysus. Dionysus was pleased that Midas had treated Silenus well. He offered to grant Midas a wish. This was a reward for the kindness shown. Midas could choose whatever he wanted. This was the offer. Midas thought about what he wanted. He decided he wanted the ability to turn things to gold by touching them. He made this wish. Dionysus granted it. From that moment, whatever Midas touched would turn to gold. This was now a property Midas possessed. At first, this seemed desirable. Midas touched a stone. It became gold. He touched a branch. It became gold. He touched various objects. They all became gold. He accumulated gold rapidly. This seemed like a successful outcome. However, problems emerged. When Midas tried to eat, the food turned to gold as he touched it. He could not eat gold. When he tried to drink, The liquid turned to gold. He could not drink gold. He became hungry and thirsty. The ability that had seemed desirable was now a difficulty. Midas realized he had made an error in his wish. He wanted to reverse it. He went to Dionysus. He explained the problem. He asked if the wish could be undone. Dionysus agreed to help. He instructed Midas to wash in a particular river. The river was called the Pactolus. Midas travelled to the river. He entered the water. He washed himself. The ability to turn things to gold left him. It transferred to the river. From that time on, the river carried gold in its sands. This explained the presence of gold in that river, according to the story. Midas could now touch things without turning them to gold. He could eat. He could drink. He returned to his normal life. He ruled his kingdom. He did not make similar wishes again. This was the conclusion of that episode. There was another story about Midas. This one involved a musical contest. Apollo and Pan were both gods. Apollo played the lyre. Pan played the pipes. They decided to have a contest to determine who was the better musician. A judge was needed. Midas was present. He agreed to judge. Apollo played first. His music was technically precise. It followed established forms. It demonstrated skill. When he finished, the music ended. Pan played next. His music was rustic. It had a wild quality. It came from a different tradition. When he finished, that music also ended. Midas was asked to decide which was better. He chose Pan. He said Pan's music was superior. This was his judgment. Apollo did not agree with this judgment. He felt his music was clearly better. He believed Midas had judged poorly. As a consequence, Apollo changed Midas's ears into donkey ears. This was Apollo's response to the judgment. Midas now had donkey ears. He was embarrassed by this. He did not want others to see them. He wore a hat or turban that covered his ears. He kept them hidden. Most people did not know about the ears. This situation continued. However, Midas needed someone to cut his hair. His barber saw the ears. Midas told the barber not to tell anyone. The barber agreed. He kept the secret. But the secret was burdensome. The barber wanted to tell someone. The barber went to a remote area. He dug a hole in the ground. He whispered the secret into the hole. "King Midas has donkey ears," he said. Then he filled the hole back in. He felt relieved. He had released the secret without telling a person. Reeds grew from the spot where the hole had been. When the wind blew through the reeds, they whispered, "King Midas has donkey ears." The secret spread this way. Eventually, everyone knew. Midas's attempt to hide his ears had failed. The situation was known. This was how that story ended. Arachne. There was a young woman named Arachne. She was skilled at weaving. She wove cloth on a loom. The cloth she produced was of high quality. The patterns were intricate. People admired her work. This admiration was deserved. She was genuinely skilled. Arachne became proud of her skill. She began to say that she was the best weaver. She said she was better than anyone else at weaving. She even said she was better than Athena. Athena was the goddess of wisdom and crafts. She was known for her skill in weaving. Claiming to be better than Athena was a significant claim. Athena heard what Arachne was saying. She decided to visit Arachne. She disguised herself as an old woman. She went to where Arachne was weaving. She spoke to Arachne. She suggested that Arachne should be more modest. She said it was fine to be proud of skill among mortals, but claiming to be better than a goddess was unwise. This was her advice. Arachne did not accept this advice. She said she stood by her claim. She said if Athena wanted to challenge her, she was ready. She was not intimidated by the goddess. This was her response. Athena revealed her true form. She accepted the challenge. A contest was arranged. Both Athena and Arachne would weave. The quality of their work would be compared. This would settle the matter. They set up their looms. They began to weave. Both worked steadily. Their hands moved with precision. The cloth grew under their efforts. Time passed as they worked. The weaving continued. Athena wove scenes of the gods in their glory. She depicted them in positions of power and dignity. The images were clear and well executed. The technical skill was evident. The cloth showed her mastery. Arachne wove scenes of the gods behaving poorly. She depicted them in situations where they had deceived mortals or acted foolishly. The images were also clear and well executed. Her technical skill was also evident. The cloth showed her mastery as well. Both finished their weaving. The cloths were examined. Both were of excellent quality. Athena's work was flawless. Arachne's work was also flawless. In terms of technical skill, they were equal. This was the assessment. However, Athena was displeased with the content of Arachne's weaving. Arachne had chosen to mock the gods. This was disrespectful. Athena was angry about this. She tore Arachne's cloth. She struck Arachne. This was her reaction. Arachne was distraught at this treatment. She decided she did not want to continue living. She prepared to hang herself. She began this action. Athena saw what Arachne was doing. She prevented the death. Instead, she transformed Arachne into a spider. As a spider, Arachne would continue weaving forever. She would spin webs. This would be her existence from that point forward. Arachne became a spider. She and her descendants have woven ever since. This is the explanation the story provides for spiders and their webs. The name for spiders in scientific terms is arachnida, derived from Arachne's name. This connection persists. Pygmalion. Pygmalion was a sculptor. He lived on the island of Cyprus. He worked with ivory and stone. He created statues. This was his occupation. He was skilled at it. Pygmalion did not have a wife. He observed the women around him and found faults in them. He decided he would rather remain alone than marry any of them. This was his choice. He continued his work and his solitary life. One day, Pygmalion began work on a new statue. This statue was of a woman. He worked on it carefully. He shaped the ivory with precision. He attended to small details. The statue gradually took form. It became very lifelike. The proportions were accurate. The features were delicate. It appeared almost real. Pygmalion completed the statue. He looked at it. He had created an image of ideal beauty, according to his own standards. The statue represented the woman he imagined, but did not believe existed. It stood in his workshop. He continued to look at it. As time passed, Pygmalion began to feel affection for the statue. This was unusual, as it was an object he had made, but the feeling grew. He began to treat the statue as if it were alive. He spoke to it. He brought it gifts. He placed it in his bed. He covered it with blankets. These actions were not rational, but he performed them nonetheless. There was a festival honoring Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Pygmalion attended. He made an offering at her altar. He prayed. He did not directly ask for the statue to come to life. Instead, he asked for a wife who would be like the statue. This was his prayer. Aphrodite heard the prayer. She understood what Pygmalion truly wanted. She decided to grant his wish. She had the power to do this. She exercised that power. Pygmalion returned home after the festival. He went to the statue, as he usually did. He touched it. The ivory felt different. It was warm. It was soft. The statue was becoming flesh. The transformation was occurring. The statue became a living woman. The woman opened her eyes. She saw Pygmalion. She was now alive. Pygmalion was overcome with emotion. His wish had been granted. The woman he had imagined now existed and stood before him. Pygmalion and the woman married. They lived together. She was called Galatea in some versions of the story, though not in the earliest ones. They had a daughter. Their life proceeded in the normal manner of married people. The story presents this as a happy outcome. Pygmalion received what he had desired, Echo and Narcissus. Echo was a nymph. Nymphs were minor deities associated with nature. Echo lived in the forests and mountains. She had one particular characteristic. She talked a great deal. She enjoyed conversation. She spoke frequently and at length. This was her nature. One day, Zeus was engaging in activities he wished to hide from his wife, Hera. He was spending time with other nymphs. Hera came looking for him. Echo saw Hera approaching. Echo began talking to Hera. She kept Hera engaged in conversation. This delayed Hera. It gave Zeus and the other nymphs time to depart. By the time Hera moved on, Zeus was gone. Hera realized what had happened. She understood that Echo had distracted her deliberately. She was angry about this. As punishment, she took away Echo's ability to speak freely. From that point on, Echo could only repeat the last words spoken by someone else. She could not originate speech. This was her new limitation. Echo continued living in the forests. She encountered a young man named Narcissus. Narcissus was known for his beauty. Many people were attracted to him. He was aware of his appearance. He was proud of it. He rejected those who showed interest in him. He did not return their affection. Echo saw Narcissus and was attracted to him. She wanted to speak to him, but she could only repeat his words. She followed him through the forest. Narcissus heard sounds of movement. He called out, "Who's there?" Echo repeated, "Who's there?" He said, "Come here." She repeated, "Come here." This continued. Eventually, Echo showed herself. She approached Narcissus. She tried to embrace him. Narcissus rejected her. He did not want her affection. He told her to leave him alone. He walked away. Echo was left alone. She was unhappy about this rejection. Echo withdrew to lonely places. She pined away. Her body faded. Eventually, only her voice remained. This is why, according to the story, there are echoes in mountains and valleys. They are the remnants of Echo, repeating the words of others. Narcissus continued rejecting those who were attracted to him. One of those he rejected prayed that he would know what it felt like to love and not be loved in return. This prayer was heard. It was decided that it would be granted. One day, Narcissus came upon a clear pool of water. He looked into it to drink. He saw his own reflection. He did not recognize it as a reflection. He thought it was another person in the water. He was attracted to this person. He tried to reach them. He could not. The reflection moved when he moved. He could not make contact. Narcissus remained by the pool. He kept looking at the reflection. He fell in love with it. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He simply stayed there, gazing at the image. He wasted away. Eventually, he died. His body disappeared. In the place where he had died, a flower grew. This flower was called the narcissus. It grows near water, where it can lean over and see its own reflection, according to the story. This was the fate of Narcissus. His inability to love others and his love for his own image led to his end. The story presents this as a consequence of excessive pride and self-regard. Daedalus and Icarus. Daedalus was a craftsman and inventor. He lived in Athens initially. He was skilled at making things. He created clever devices. His reputation for skill was widespread. He had a nephew who was also talented. This nephew was learning the craft. Some said the nephew might become even more skilled than Daedalus. Daedalus became jealous of his nephew. In a moment of anger, he pushed his nephew off a roof. The nephew died. Daedalus had to leave Athens because of this. He went to Crete. There, he entered the service of King Minos. King Minos had a problem. His wife had given birth to a creature that was half man and half bull. This was the Minotaur. Minos needed a place to keep the Minotaur. Daedalus designed and built a structure called the labyrinth. This was a maze so complex that once inside, one could not find the way out. The Minotaur was placed in the labyrinth. This solved the immediate problem. Time passed. Daedalus helped Theseus, an Athenian hero, escape from the labyrinth after Theseus killed the Minotaur. Minos was angry about this. He imprisoned Daedalus and his son Icarus in a tower. They were not permitted to leave. Minos controlled the land and the sea. He made sure they could not escape by those routes. Daedalus considered the situation. Land and sea were closed to them, but the air was open. He decided they would escape by flying. He gathered feathers. He used wax to bind the feathers together. He constructed wings. He made a pair for himself. He made a pair for Icarus. The wings were functional. They could be used for flight. Before they departed, Daedalus instructed Icarus. He told him to fly at a moderate height. If he flew too low, the sea spray would make the wings heavy. If he flew too high, the heat of the sun would melt the wax. The middle path was safest. Icarus should follow his father and maintain a steady course. These were the instructions. They put on the wings. They jumped from the tower. The wings worked. They flew. They left Crete. They were above the sea. The escape was proceeding. As they flew, Icarus felt the sensation of flight. It was exhilarating. He began to fly higher. He was enjoying the experience. He forgot his father's warnings. He continued climbing. He went higher and higher. The sun grew closer. The heat of the sun melted the wax on Icarus's wings. The feathers came loose. The wings fell apart. Icarus began to fall. He fell into the sea. He drowned. This was the outcome of not following the instructions. Daedalus looked back. He saw feathers floating on the water. He realized what had happened. Icarus was gone. Daedalus continued to fly. He reached Sicily safely. He lived there for the rest of his life. but his son was lost. The story presents this as a tragedy resulting from youthful recklessness and failure to heed wise advice. Conclusion. These were some stories from Greek mythology. They have been told for thousands of years. They have been interpreted in many ways. They contain themes that people have found meaningful: loss, pride, transformation, consequences of choices. But at their core, they are simply stories. Events occurred, characters acted, outcomes resulted. The stories were passed down. They continue to be retold. This concludes the narration.